Hello, Steve 89. Well, I watched the 7th episode of Superman, Superman and Lois. The big reveal, the Black Lex Luthor was not Black Lex Luthor. He's actually Steel. John Henry Irons, who was actually the Steel character was, Shaq played him in a 90s film. There were a whole bunch of superhero films, sort of around the successful superhero films like the Christopher Reeve Superman films and the Tim Burton Batman films. Before the sort of Iron Man and Marvel Universe and the new DC films, there were a bunch of other 90s films that didn't do so well, like Steel and the Fantastic Four and, what was the other one? Well, there was Captain America films, there was Amazing Spider-Man films. There were a whole bunch of them that were done mostly just to keep the rights going. And Steel was one of them. I'd heard it was okay, but not great. It was on the list to watch, but I had no idea who Steel was. So basically, he was a character who he built. He was a scientist. So he was an engineer, like a weapons tech guy. And he made a suit that had the equivalent power of Superman. And he had a giant hammer that he could use. So in the comics, he ended up joining Superman. In this, he was married to Lois, and he witnessed Superman turning dark and a bunch of Kryptonians destroying Metropolis and I guess destroying Earth. And Lois, of course, went to report to try and let the world know what the Kryptonians' weakness was, kryptonite, and he literally killed her with his laser eyes live on air. So that must have been a moment that would have got some big ratings in the other universe. So basically we find Lois trying to work out who he is. So she meets up with him, she arranges to meet up with him, and he tells her some stuff. He does tell her that what is his name? I can't remember the name of that guy. I can never remember his name. Morgan Edge, because it doesn't sound like a real name. Morgan Edge, it sounds like a business. Morgan Edge is basically trying to create an army of people using the X-Kryptonite, but she still doesn't trust him because he won't tell her who he is. So Clark goes and checks out his creepy camper, and he finds the little space Siri, which is sitting there, but yet it's so advanced, but yet it can't tell that it's not Captain Lex walking in, and it's actually Clark. So it slips up and says, hey, Captain Luthor. So he goes back to Lois and says, it's Lex Luthor, and they're like trying to work it out. Like, how can he be Lex Luthor? And they go through his history and everything, they can't work it out. He ends up, between Superman and him, they end up capturing the X-Kryptonite, because Morgan Edge and that were basically sending that out, sort of like to see who would follow it. So they do that, they talk, blah, 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 he goes off. And eventually he's basically setting up a trap for Superman, because Lois agrees to ask him to meet him, because he uses the world is ending thing as an excuse to speak to him. So he shows up, and he has basically a ring of kryptonite lights that weakens him, and he's planning to kill him. Now, in the meantime, before all this, we discovered that Jordan, his problem is that his super hearing is kicking in. He doesn't know how to filter through the noises. He's hearing like the whole world amplified, and it's doing his head in. So he's wearing headphones, basically trying to tune out all the noise, and he has to learn, like Clark did, which took him a few weeks, how to focus on things and how to read all the new noises that he's hearing. So he's trying to do that, and he has a moment where he is trying to focus on a picture of Sarah to focus on noise, and he manages to hear her talking to Jonathan, And it's quite an intimate conversation where he's basically saying, oh, I like you, you're interesting, you're honest, if you ever want to talk to me, blah, blah, blah. And he gets angry enough, he puts his fist through a wall because he feels like he's hitting on her, and it does sound a bit like that. And then he shows up, confronts him, and he's like, how dare you listen to me? I've done so much for you, how dare you? And he's yelling at him, and obviously the noise is getting to him, and he even bangs the wall just to, it's almost like hitting him, and he falls down and he walks off. Eventually he apologises to him and everything. But I like that scene. I don't know, I liked him because he's gotten the short end of the stick every time in this so far in favour of Jordan. Now, Lana is supposed to be finding recruits unknowingly for the ex-kryptonite to be turned into the army of soldiers, whatever. And one of her friends comes in and she's like, yeah, no, I don't want to put you up for this because I don't know what this is. This is evil. And Morgan sees her talking to him, and he actually suggests at first to suggest Kyle, and she's sort of like, we really a bit too busy for that. We can't really handle two people for a great job. So he picks her friend, and she's like, oh, I didn't choose this for you, no. But she brings her a fruit basket. She's so happy that she got the job, and she's like, oh no, I think you just got cursed to some sort of horrible destiny. And I think that's where we leave Lana. I think that's the last we hear of her this episode. So yeah, Walt Parks tries to kill Superman. He nearly does it, except Jordan hears what's happening because he's working on his hearing. And they literally get in the truck, and they just go, and they get there. They're tracking him by Jordan's hearing, and they get there just in time to ram him into a bunch of machinery, and then Jonathan knocks out the light, and then all the other lights explode. And Superman has to not beat the crap out of him, which I'm really not liking this portrayal as Superman as having this anger that he has to manage, and that he's not sort of perfect, because the idea of Superman always was part of his Kryptonian alien nature was that he wasn't an angry, hateful, hurtful, it wasn't in him. He could never hurt anyone. I don't like them sort of walking that back and making him more like a human that's just managing powers, because he's not managing powers. He's a Kryptonian. So, yep. And what else? I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else in this episode that happened. I'm looking at my very messy notes. I write really bad notes. I really need to do better notes. Yeah, I mean, it was good. I was kind of surprised because there was a lot of talk about the Black Lex Luthor. And I thought there was a Black Lex Luthor in one of the cartoons, because I saw some pictures. I didn't really care. And apparently there was a bit of some stories and that about how, the big reveal is not Lex Luthor, and some suggestion that people had a problem with Lex Luthor being black and being race swapped and all that. I didn't care because he was from another universe, so it didn't really matter. It's not like they changed the Lex in our universe that's established. That's one from another universe. So those are the sort of examples where you can race swap and it doesn't really matter because you're not really race swapping. So some people were sort of gloating about that, like, oh, look, you were all so upset about Lex Luthor being black and he wasn't even Lex Luthor. I'm like, well, yeah, they kind of lied. So how would people know either way? I didn't care. But yeah, so that was kind of weird, because someone even messaged me like, oh, you must feel so stupid now. And I'm like, I'm not reading this because I don't want to know. I haven't seen the episode. I don't know who's been revealed, what's happened. I don't know what this guy's on about. And now I know, oh, he was talking about that. Okay. But yeah, poor Steel is locked in some prison because Superman took him to the army's custody, and he wants to get back to his daughter. His daughter helped him build the suit, and or was it his niece? I think in the comics it was his niece, but in this it's his daughter, so I'm a bit confused. And she obviously didn't want him to leave and go to sort of save, the other universe, whatever. And she's waiting for him, and he's just sitting there saying, I promise, in his head, remembering saying, I'll come back. And he actually has a thing on his wrist of hers. I think it was from her hair. I have long hair, so I always have these on my wrists. It's a bit sad. I'm sure he'll get back to her, but yeah. So it was a good episode. I found it interesting. I don't know why they set him up to be Lex Luthor and why this space Siri from the ship is calling him Lex. But I mean, she couldn't tell that. That's a weird thing. She couldn't tell that Clark wasn't Lex when he walked in, but yet she was able to take pictures of him to show him who snuck into the caravan. It doesn't make much sense, but I don't know if this is bad writing or something that's going to make sense later, because sometimes it's hard to tell bad writing from things that are being set up that you're not supposed to actually understand because some other shoe's going to drop later. I don't know, but I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Was this a good representation of Steel? Will he be back to fight Superman? Is he still going to be the big bad for the season, or has he sort of had his arc and he's sort of done and something else is going to happen before the end of the season? I have no idea. That's the great thing about this. I have a weekly show and I don't know what's going to happen each week. I haven't had a weekly show for ages. I've streamed a couple of shows that were older, but I haven't had a weekly show to watch for years. The last thing I remember watching was American Horror Story before they replaced Jessica Lange with Gaga and ruined it. And I don't think I've watched a weekly show since then. It's been that long. Obviously I watched Star Trek Discovery and Picard, but that was hate viewing. But I'm really going to go, and we'll see what happens next week. I'm very excited to have... Actually, I think it's a couple of days. It took me so long to see those 2 episodes. I think it's only a couple of days for the next episode, so yay. Bye.